She had no date, no friends at the wedding. Then, the groom's millionaire friend sat beside her. "Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. It was a warm September afternoon in Oregon, the kind that smelled like champagne and wet grass. String lights shimmered across the vineyard, and a small acoustic band played the last notes of a love song. The guitarist Lily Hart, 28, was supposed to pack up and leave after the ceremony. She had been hired just to play, not to stay. But as the crowd drifted toward the dinner tables, she froze. A single seat stood empty near the groom's side table, 12, its name tag curled up in the wind. Everyone else was laughing, clinking glasses, posting perfect photos. Lily's calloused fingers brushed against the worn strap of her guitar case, and something inside her whispered, "Just sit down." Maybe it was exhaustion after another night gig at the Riverlight Bar. Maybe it was the fact that no one had even looked her in the eye all day. Either way, she sat her day. Seconds later, a tall man in a black suit approached, confusion flickering in his eyes. "Excuse me," he said. "I think you are at—" "I know," she interrupted without looking up. "Just give me 5 minutes to pretend I belong somewhere." He paused, then smiled calm, curious. "Well," he said, pulling the chair beside her, "you chose the best table to do that." The air shifted. Laughter from the dance floor faded into background noise. For a moment it felt like the entire wedding had slowed down just for them. Lily tilted her glass, catching his reflection in the golden rim. He looked nothing like the groomsman, no loud laughter, no phone in hand. Just quiet confidence, like someone who had seen too much to be impressed by anything. "You do not look like the kind of man who sits at weddings alone," she said. He shrugged. "Maybe I am the kind of man who just likes to watch people start over." Quote. Something about that answer unsettled her. A gust of wind rattled the hanging lanterns. Her guitar string snapped inside the case, a sharp metallic twang that turned a few heads. "Perfect," she muttered under her breath. "Even my instrument is trying to escape." He leaned closer, amused. Maybe it is just tired of love songs. She smirked, hiding the sting in her chest. "Aren't we all?" The bridesmaids whispered at another table, curious who the mystery woman was sitting next to one of the groom's richest friends. Someone snapped a photo. Someone else laughed. But Lily kept her eyes on her drink, pretending not to notice the stares. And here is the strange part, something that might divide you in the comments. Because some people would call it bold, others would call it desperate. But that night, for the first time in years, Lily Hart, the broke guitarist from the Riverlight Bar, decided not to play the music. She decided to play a role. She lifted her glass toward him and said softly, "So, are we going to toast to the happy couple, or to something else?" He met her gaze. "Maybe," he said, "to the seat you were never meant to take." And that was how it began: the wrong seat, the right stranger, and a story that would change both their lives forever. Lily did not remember the man's name until the next morning. Something about his quiet voice and the way he said that strange toast kept replaying in her head. "To the seat you were never meant to take." She told herself it was just a line, something men said at weddings when the champagne made them bold. But still, it stayed with her. After the ceremony, the night blurred into laughter, sparklers, and music. Guests began dancing beneath the glowing lights. Lily slipped away toward the back of the vineyard, her heels sinking into the grass. She sat on a low stone wall, opened her guitar case, and checked the snapped string. The metal coil had curled like a question mark. Her phone buzzed. It was the Riverlight Bar manager reminding her about her next shift. Another midnight gig, 20 minutes away, $75 if she stayed until closing. She sighed, slung the guitar over her shoulder, and started walking toward the parking lot. Halfway there, a voice called from behind. "You leaving already?" She turned. The man from table 12, he was standing under the string lights, hands in his pockets, the faintest smile on his lips. "I work nights," she said. "The music does not play itself." "Where?" he asked. "Riverlight by the bridge." "I have been there," he said, surprising her. "Their piano is out of tune." That made her laugh. "You noticed?" "I noticed things that should sound better," he said. The wind caught her hair as she adjusted the strap of her guitar. For a moment, it felt like the world was listening in on their silence. "Maybe I will stop by," he said, "if you promise to play that song again." "Which one?" "The one you were humming when you sat down." She frowned. That was not a song, that was frustration. Frustration has rhythm too, he replied, and then walked away into the crowd. Later that night, Lily was back under the dim neon sign of Riverlight Bar. The place smelled like whiskey and wet wood. Her fingers ached, but the familiar strings gave her a strange comfort. Around midnight, a man in a black suit appeared near the bar counter. He was out of place among the regulars in leather jackets and flannel shirts. It was him again. He did not sit close. He just listened, a half-finished drink untouched in front of him. Between songs, she caught his eyes in the mirror behind the stage. He raised his glass slightly, a silent cheer. When the crowd thinned out, he walked toward her. "You sound different here," he said. "Maybe because no one's pretending this time." He smiled. "Maybe that is when people are most real." She packed up her guitar. He handed her a folded napkin. On it, a neat handwriting. "If you ever want to play for more than tips, call me. E.B." "E.B.?" she asked. "Evan Blake," he said simply. "Event consultant, sort of." He left before she could reply. Lily looked at the napkin for a long moment, her thumb tracing the initials. It was either an opportunity or another beautiful lie waiting to happen. She tucked it inside her guitar case, right next to the broken string she still had not thrown away. Some people would say fate gives you signs. Others would say it just repeats itself until you listen. And that night, as the bar lights flickered off one by one, Lily Hart could not tell whether she had met a chance or a storm dressed in a suit. The next evening, rain tapped lightly against the window of Lily's small apartment above a coffee shop. The napkin, with the initials E.B., lay on the kitchen counter beside her worn-out notebook of half-finished lyrics. She read the words again. "If you ever want to play for more than tips, call me." It felt unreal, like a line from a movie where things actually worked out. But life, she knew, was rarely a movie. Still, curiosity won. She dialed the number on the napkin. It rang twice before a calm voice answered. "This is Evan." "Hi, it is Lily Hart, from Riverlight." There was a pause, then a smile she could somehow hear through the phone. "I was wondering when you would call." He invited her to meet him the next afternoon at a cafe near the old train station. Lily almost said no. But something about his tone, the steady confidence, the lack of pressure, made her agree. The cafe was warm and smelled like cinnamon and espresso. When she arrived, Evan was already there, sitting by the window, flipping through what looked like sheet music. She noticed his watch, simple, elegant, but not flashy. He stood as she approached, pulling out the chair across from him. "You came," he said. "I almost did not," she admitted. "Then I am glad curiosity won." Quote. He slid a folder toward her. Inside were photos of a stage, a small venue with fairy lights strung across the ceiling. "We are starting a charity event called Open Hands," he explained. "Local musicians. Real stories. We do not want big names. We want heart." She raised an eyebrow. "And you think I have that?" "I heard it in your playing," he said simply. "You make people stop talking. That is rare." Lily hesitated. It sounded too good. Opportunities like this did not just fall from the sky, or from a stranger at a wedding. "What do you want in return?" she asked. "Just for you to show up," he said. "Play your truth. The rest will follow." He reached into his coat pocket and placed something small on the table, a new guitar string, still wrapped in paper. "For that broken one," he said. She blinked, surprised. "You remembered? I noticed things that deserve a second chance," he said softly. For a moment, she was quiet. Then she smiled, the kind that started small but reached her eyes. "All right, Mr. Blake. You get one song." He smiled back. "That is all I need." That evening, Lily sat in her apartment restringing her guitar. The silver string shimmered under the lamp's warm glow. She played a few notes, soft, hesitant, then sure. The melody that came out was new but familiar, something between hope and fear. Down below, the rain had stopped. The city lights glowed through the mist. She whispered to herself, "Maybe it is not too late." For the next few weeks, she and Evan worked together at the Open Hands venue, preparing for the first event. They tested microphones, arranged chairs, shared coffee and laughter. Sometimes he would listen quietly as she rehearsed, his gaze thoughtful but never intrusive. Other times he would help her carry amps, sleeves rolled up, nothing like the polished guest she met at that wedding. Little by little, her guard began to fall. She caught herself looking forward to his texts, his questions, his silence that somehow said more than words. But one night, as they packed up after rehearsal, she noticed a man approach Evan, a sharp-looking guy in a tailored suit. The man whispered something quickly, glancing at her. Evan's jaw tightened before he replied. The man handed him a folder stamped with a logo she could barely make out. Vega Technologies. Lily froze. She had seen that name before on the back of a contract her old band had once dreamed of signing with. A company that owned half the city's music scene. As Evan turned back toward her, she forced a smile. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Maybe the music is not the only thing he has been tuning." That was the first time she began to wonder who Evan Blake really was. Before we continue, what do you think? Would you trust a man who hides behind kindness, or would you walk away before the truth hurts? Tell us in the comments below. The next morning, Lily arrived early at the Open Hands venue. The small theater smelled of new paint and coffee. She carried her guitar case, the new silver string glinting under the light. Evan was already there, talking to a stage technician. He looked different, somehow focused, serious, almost like another version of himself. When he saw her, he smiled. "You are early." "I could not sleep," she said. "Figured the music might be awake too." He laughed quietly. "That is how I know you are the real deal." They spent the morning arranging chairs and sound-checking the stage. Lily tuned her guitar while Evan adjusted the lighting cues. The easy rhythm between them felt natural, like they had been doing this for years. But every time she glanced at him, the memory of the folder and that sharp-looking man flashed in her mind. The words Vega Technologies echoed like a dissonant chord. Around noon, she finally asked, "Who was that man last night?" Evan looked up from the soundboard. "A friend from work." "Why?" "His jacket had a Vega logo," she said carefully. "I used to dream about sending demos there." Evan's hands paused for a fraction of a second. Then he smiled lightly. "I do some consulting for them. Small projects. Nothing glamorous." Lily wanted to believe him. His tone was calm, casual, but her gut twisted anyway. That afternoon they rehearsed the lineup for the event. Other musicians began to arrive, local singers, a drummer, a poet with a raspy voice. Lily watched as Evan greeted each of them, kind but efficient. When he talked to her, though, his eyes softened. "Play the new one," he said, "the one you wrote at home." She hesitated. "It is not finished. That is the point. Let them see the process, not perfection." She began to play. The melody was raw, imperfect, but something in her voice made the room fall still. Even the poet stopped tapping his pen. When the last note faded, Evan said quietly, "That is the one we open with." Later, as they packed up, he handed her a small card. "Rehearsal dinner tomorrow at 7, just a few sponsors. Come if you can." She looked at the card. The address was at a high-end restaurant downtown, way beyond her world. "I do not really fit in at places like that," she said. "Neither do I," he replied. "That is why we will sit together." The way he said it, simple, sincere, disarmed her. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. That night, Lily stood in front of her mirror, trying on the only decent dress she owned. She brushed her hair, laughed at her reflection, and whispered, "You are just going for dinner, not destiny." But deep down, she knew that line was already blurring. When she arrived at the restaurant, everything shimmered: glass walls, soft jazz, waiters in crisp uniforms. Evan was by the entrance, phone pressed to his ear. When he saw her, he hung up immediately. "You made it," he said, his eyes lighting up. "Still not sure I belong here," she said. "Trust me, you belong more than half the people in this room." He guided her to their table. For a while, everything felt perfect: laughter, clinking glasses, the glow of candlelight. Then a woman in a sleek black dress approached them, her smile practiced and sharp. "Evan, there you are. Mr. Vega has been asking for you." Lily froze. "Mr. Vega?" The name rang through her like a warning bell. Evan's expression flickered for a second before he recovered. "Tell him I will be right there." The woman nodded and walked away. Lily looked at him, the air tightening between them. "Vega. As in Vega Technologies?" He met her eyes. "Yes." Quote. "And you are not just consulting, are you?" He sighed. "No, I am not." The silence that followed was louder than any song. "Before we move on, tell me, if you were Lily, what would you do now? Would you walk away from someone who lied, or stay and find out why? Share your thoughts in the comments below." Lily stared at him across the table, her fingers tightening around the edge of her napkin. The sound of the restaurant faded into a dull hum. For a moment, she could not even hear the music anymore, just the steady pounding of her heart. "You lied to me," she said quietly. "All this time you made it sound like you were just someone who believed in music. But you are one of them. The ones who buy it, sell it, package it until it is hollow." Evan leaned forward, his voice calm but urgent. Lily, listen to me. I never meant to hide who I was. I just wanted you to see me without the headlines, without the walls that money builds. Klosk, she shook her head. You wanted honesty? But you started with a lie. People at the nearby tables glanced over. Evan lowered his tone. Do you really think I would have found you if I came as the CEO of Vega Technologies? You would have walked away before I said a word. He was right, and that made it worse. Lily pushed her chair back and stood up. Maybe I should have. She turned and walked toward the exit. Outside, the night air was sharp with rain. The city lights blurred through the drizzle as she hurried toward the street, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Evan followed, his footsteps echoing behind her. Lily, wait! She stopped under a flickering street lamp, her hair clinging to her face. For what? Another promise? Another version of the truth? Evan's voice cracked for the first time. For the chance to explain. The project, the event, it was real. You were real. Everything else was noise. Quote. She looked at him, hurt and anger fighting inside her. You built a company that turned music into numbers. You turned something pure into a market. You do not get to talk about real. He swallowed hard. Maybe that is why I needed you to remind me what real sounds like. The rain fell harder. A taxi splashed water near them, headlights scattering reflections across the wet pavement. For a moment, the world seemed split between two lives, one she could have had, and one she was walking away from. Lily turned and walked toward the corner, her voice trembling. You can keep your stage, Evan. I will find mine somewhere else. She disappeared into the crowd, leaving him standing in the rain, holding nothing but her broken silence. That night, Lily went back to the Riverlight bar. The neon sign flickered, painting her face in red and blue. She sat on the small stage, fingers tracing the silver string he had given her. It glimmered under the low lights, a reminder of something that once felt simple. When she began to play, the melody was raw, no microphone, no backing track. Just her voice, cracked but honest. People turned from their drinks, listening. Even the bartender stopped wiping glasses. For the first time, she sang the words that had haunted her for weeks. Maybe it is not too late. Quote. The song spilled out like a confession, fragile and beautiful. When it ended, no one clapped right away. They just sat in silence, breathing the same ache she felt. Outside the bar, Evan stood in the rain, listening through the open door. He did not enter. He knew this was her moment, not his. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old snapped guitar string, the one she had left behind at the wedding. He held it tight until the cold metal bit into his palm. For a long time, he stayed there, watching her silhouette in the dim light, and whispered, I am sorry, Lily. I just wanted to hear the truth. Inside, she played on, unaware of the man outside or the storm above, just a woman and her music, finding her way back to herself. And maybe, somewhere deep down, the universe was already planning how to bring them back together. But for now, two hearts beat in the same city, both learning the same lesson. Love built on lies can still lead you to the truth. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between Lily and Evan grew like an unspoken song that neither of them dared to finish. The Open Hands project went on without her. Posters with new faces began to appear around the city, musicians she had met only once, smiling in front of cameras that promised opportunity. Lily tried not to look, but it was impossible. Her name had been there once, right beside Evan's. Now, it was gone. At the Riverlight bar, she kept playing, night after night. The crowd was small, the tips smaller. Yet there was something peaceful in the routine. The broken girl from the wedding had turned into a woman who played for herself, not for applause. Still, every time she tuned her guitar, the silver string reminded her of him, the man who had believed in her before the truth fell apart. One night, after a late set, the bar's owner, Martin, handed her a flyer. You might want to see this, he said. The flyer read, One Kindness Night presented by Vega Technologies and the Carter Foundation. The event was scheduled for the weekend, at the same venue where she and Evan had first rehearsed together. Lily stared at the paper. She did not know if she felt angry or nostalgic. He moved on fast, she muttered. Martin shrugged. Or maybe he is trying to make things right. Quote, The next day, she found herself standing outside the venue. She told herself she was just passing by, but her feet would not move. Through the glass doors, she could see technicians setting up the stage. The lights glowed soft gold, just like before. Then she saw him. Evan stood near the sound booth, his sleeves rolled up, giving directions. He looked different, less polished, more tired, but his presence filled the room. A woman approached him, holding a clipboard. We still have an open slot for the final act, she said. Any idea who we can put there? Evan hesitated, his gaze lifted, as if he could sense her watching. And then he saw her through the glass, standing in the rain, holding her guitar case like a shield. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he walked to the door and opened it. You came, he said softly. I am not sure why, she replied. Maybe I just wanted to see how the story ends. Quote, he stepped aside, motioning for her to come in. Then you might as well help write it. She almost laughed. You still think everything can be fixed with a performance? No, he said quietly. But I think some things can only be understood through one. The sincerity in his eyes disarmed her. Against her better judgment, she followed him inside. The room smelled like fresh wood and rain. Musicians were rehearsing. Volunteers were setting up chairs. Evan handed her a folder. Inside were stage notes and a list of performers. Her name was written in pen across the last line. You saved me a spot, she said. I never erased you, he replied. For a while, they just stood there, the tension between them softer now, more like an unfinished chord waiting for resolution. Later that evening, as the rehearsal wrapped up, Lily tested her guitar on stage. Her fingers trembled at first, but when the first note filled the air, it was as if the room itself exhaled. Evan watched from the back, arms crossed, eyes glistening under the stage lights. When she finished, he walked closer and said quietly, That is what I wanted people to hear from the start. The truth, not perfection. She looked at him, unsure if she should smile or walk away again. I do not know if I can trust you, she said. I do not blame you, he answered. But let me earn it, not ask for it. There was silence, the kind that holds 1,000 words. Before we continue, tell me what you think. Should Lily give him another chance, or should she close that chapter for good? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. The night of One Kindness Night arrived with the smell of rain still hanging in the air. The city lights shimmered on wet pavement, and the venue buzzed with quiet anticipation. Inside, the room glowed in soft amber tones. Rows of white chairs faced the small wooden stage where a single microphone stood waiting. Lily arrived early, guitar in hand, nerves hiding behind her calm expression. Her name was printed on the final slot of the program, Lily Hart. Maybe it is not too late. She had thought about canceling a dozen times, but something about the way Evan had said, "Let me earn it," stayed with her. When she walked in, Evan was already there, helping an older volunteer carry equipment. He looked up and smiled, the kind of smile that did not reach for forgiveness but offered peace. You made it, he said softly. She adjusted the strap of her guitar. Do not make a big deal out of it. Too late, he said. It already feels like one. For the next hour, the room filled with guests, musicians, journalists, donors, and strangers from every corner of the city. The idea behind One Kindness Night was simple: to share stories that began with a single act of compassion. It was ironic, Lily thought, that she and Evan were about to become one of those stories. When the lights dimmed, the host welcomed everyone and introduced the evening's lineup. Performers shared songs about survival, forgiveness, and second chances. Each act was followed by quiet applause that felt like gratitude more than admiration. Backstage, Lily waited for her turn. Her hands shook slightly as she tightened her tuning pegs. Evan stood a few feet away, watching her in silence. Finally, she broke the tension. Why are you doing this? She asked. The event, the charity, the speeches, is it guilt? Evan took a slow breath. Maybe it started that way, but now it is about something bigger, about reminding people that sincerity still matters. She looked at him. And what about us? Does sincerity fix that too? He smiled faintly. It is a start. When her name was called, Lily stepped onto the stage. The spotlight found her, soft and steady. She took a moment, scanning the audience faces of strangers, and somewhere near the back, the man who had once broken her heart without meaning to. She began to play. The first chords of Maybe It Is Not Too Late echoed through the hall, tender and haunting. Her voice carried a mix of vulnerability and strength, each lyric peeling back a layer of her story. Halfway through the song, she looked up and saw Evan standing near the side of the stage, not as a CEO, not as a man seeking redemption, but as someone listening with everything he had. For a fleeting second, their eyes met, and the noise of the world disappeared. When the final note faded, the audience stayed silent, as if afraid to break the spell. Then applause rose, slow and genuine. Lily exhaled, her shoulders shaking slightly. After the show, guests mingled in the lobby. Evan waited near the exit, hands in his pockets. When she walked past, he said quietly, "You were incredible." She stopped. "That song was not about you." "I know," he said, "but I am glad I was in the room to hear it." There was a pause. Then, Unexpectedly, she handed him something small, an envelope. "What is this?" "Something I wrote before the show," she said. "You can read it later." He nodded, accepting it without opening it. "Thank you for giving me a chance to stand in the same room as your truth." As she walked out into the cool night, Lily felt lighter, as if a chapter had quietly closed. Back inside, Evan unfolded the envelope. Inside was a single line written in her handwriting. "Forgiveness is not forgetting, it is hearing the song without the pain." He smiled, the kind of smile that carried both sorrow and hope. "What about you? Do you believe forgiveness can rebuild something broken, or does it simply teach us how to let go?" Share your thoughts in the comments below. A week passed after One Kindness Night, and the city seemed quieter somehow. The posters of the event were still up on the cafe boards, the videos still spreading online. People talked about Lily's performance, the raw honesty in her voice, the simplicity that made the audience forget about fame and see truth instead. Lily returned to her small apartment, the same one above the coffee shop. She placed her guitar against the wall, next to the folded program from the event. For the first time in years, she did not feel invisible. Her song was out there now, in the world, breathing on its own. But peace and confusion often walk side by side, because even as she felt proud, she kept thinking about Evan. She remembered how he stood at the back of the room, not asking for forgiveness, not trying to control the moment, just listening. One morning, a letter arrived in her mailbox. There was no return address, only her name written in bold ink. Inside, a note. "Lily, thank you for giving me a place to listen again. The world does not need another company, it needs another reason to care. I am stepping away from Vega. The board will not understand, but that is fine. Maybe kindness cannot be monetized, and maybe that is the point. If you ever decide to build something new, something honest, call me. I will be wherever the music leads. Evan." She read the letter twice, then set it down next to the silver guitar string framed in glass. He had kept his word. He was choosing truth over comfort. That evening, Lily walked to the riverfront, the same place where they had once practiced late into the night. The sky burned with orange and gold, and the water shimmered like a promise. She sat on a bench, guitar in her lap, letting the sound of the current fill the silence. Without planning it, she began to play. The melody was soft, almost like a whisper between the wind and the waves. Then she noticed someone stop nearby. Evan. He was not in a suit this time, just jeans, an old sweater, and a quiet smile that looked real for once. "I thought you were in New York," she said. "I was supposed to be," he replied. "But then I realized every decision I made lately was about running away from the truth. So I came back to find it." She strummed another chord, half amused, half unsure. "You think you found it?" He nodded. "I found where it started." For a moment they just stood there, the sound of her guitar filling the space between them. He took a step closer. "I do not want to fix what we had. I just want to start something that feels real this time." "What?" She studied his face, searching for the arrogance that used to hide behind charm. It was gone. What stood in front of her was not a millionaire or a CEO, just a man who had finally learned how to listen. She smiled faintly. "Real is harder than rich, you know. I am ready to work for it," he said. "No contracts, no spotlight, just music, and maybe you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a ring stringed through the silver guitar wire. "I thought it could mean a second chance, not just for us, but for the way we live." Lily looked at it, then at him. "You are still full of metaphors." He laughed. "Maybe, but I am finally living one." She took the ring, the wire cool against her fingers, and said quietly, "Then let us see if the music still fits." They sat together by the river until the sun disappeared. She played, and he hummed softly beside her. No grand declarations, no applause, just two people, flawed but trying again. And for once, the silence that followed did not feel empty. It felt like home. Before the final part of their story, I want to ask you, do you believe second chances belong to everyone or only to those brave enough to earn them? Tell me what you think in the comments below. 6 months later, spring returned to Oregon. The rain had softened, the vineyards had turned green again, and life quietly began to write new verses for everyone who had survived the storm. At the edge of the city, the Open Hands community stage was no longer a temporary project. It had grown into a permanent space, a warm, small theater where local musicians came to share songs and stories. On the front wall hung a framed photo from that first One Kindness night, surrounded by dozens of handwritten thank you notes from strangers who had found hope through the music. Lily stood on that same stage now, tuning her guitar under the morning light. The silver string still gleamed in place, stronger than ever. She smiled to herself. For the first time, she was not playing for survival. She was playing because she wanted to. Evan entered quietly from the side door, holding 2 cups of coffee. His sleeves were rolled up, his hair a little longer, his expression soft. "Still sound checking?" he asked. "Always," she said. "Perfection is an illusion, but rhythm, that is real," he grinned. I could not agree more. They had built the space together over the last few months, brick by brick, note by note. He had kept his promise and left Vega Technologies for good, turning down the comfort of wealth to create something that mattered. Now, he worked behind the scenes, helping young artists find the same freedom that Lily had once fought for. As the room began to fill for that evening's anniversary show, Lily adjusted the microphone and glanced at him. "Are you ready for the chaos?" "Always," he said. "Besides, chaos is where all good music starts." Quote. The first guests arrived students, small-town musicians, cafe singers, even strangers who had seen her video online and wanted to meet the girl who sang about second chances. The air felt alive, humming with warmth and possibility. When the lights dimmed, Evan stepped up to welcome everyone. "1 year ago," he began, "a stranger gave up her last bit of courage to sit at the wrong table. And somehow, that one act of bravery led us all here." His eyes found Lily in the front row. "This night, this place, exists because one person reminded me that kindness is not weakness, it is leadership." Applause rippled through the crowd. Lily felt her throat tighten, but she smiled. She walked to the microphone, guitar in hand. "Hi everyone," she said softly. "Tonight's song is not about endings or beginnings. It is about what happens when we finally stop running." She began to play "Maybe It Is Not Too Late." The chords filled the room, warm and honest, like sunlight after rain. Midway through, Evan joined her on stage with a small second guitar. Their rhythm blended easily, 2 melodies finally finding their balance. When the last note lingered in the air, the audience stood, clapping not just for the song but for what it represented: redemption, truth, and the courage to begin again. Lily turned toward Evan. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the ring threaded through the silver guitar wire. Under the soft stage light, it shimmered like a quiet promise. "I used to think music was about control," he said. "But you showed me it is about connection. So I am asking, will you keep writing this song with me?" The crowd hushed. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but her smile was steady. She nodded. "As long as you promise to keep it in tune." Laughter and applause burst across the room. Evan slipped the ring onto her finger, and the audience cheered, some wiping their eyes. The silver wire caught the light once more, tying together every mistake, every truth, every second chance they had ever shared. As the applause faded, Lily looked out at the audience, the strangers, the dreamers, the people who still believed that love could come from the most unexpected places. Her voice trembled slightly as she said, "Sometimes sitting at the wrong table is the only way to find where you truly belong. Go." And in that moment, under golden lights and soft applause, 2 hearts that had once broken found their perfect rhythm again.